You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Homefield Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to our first disappointing episode of the season of the Assembly Call. As tonight, your Indiana Hoosiers walked into the barn and lost by 9 points by a final score of 73-64 to a somewhat shorthanded Minnesota team in Nico Medved's first Big Ten home game as the Minnesota coach. And so that loss drops IU to 7-1. Overall and 0-1 in the Big Ten Conference. I'm Andy Bottoms here with the coach Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips, and we'll break it down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show in a game that IU really kind of struggled throughout, couldn't get their footing, missed a lot of free throws, missed multiple opportunities to really seize control of the game at different points in each half, and really didn't respond to the physicality that Minnesota brought. And really struggled their way to a rough looking road loss against what is projected to be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. But despite all of that, we're going to start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. You're good. Go ahead. My fault, Eddie. Our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Homefield Apparel, now in their 10th season sponsoring the Assembly Call, and I'm reading the best part too. I am doing a terrible job. I am performing just as poorly as the team did tonight so far. We are off to a rousing start. So, the banner moment tonight, there was a stretch in the second half when it felt like IU might be able to take the lead, went on a nice run after giving up 13 points in 5 possessions somehow. But Lamar Wilkerson hits a 3 at the end of the shot clock. He goes down the other end, blocks a shot. The next defensive possession, he gets a steal that leads to a Tucker DeVries 3, which I think cut the Minnesota lead to 2 or 3. But IU then was unable to get things done defensively. But I thought Wilkerson was a guy who in stretches had some shots blocked, but was really cutting hard, made some things happen as he was in there. And that stretch really looked like a guy that if they were going to turn around and win the game, if they're going to turn around and win the game, he was going to really have been the reason why, because of the way he played during that stretch there. And unfortunately, Minnesota took a timeout after that, really settled themselves down and scored on a few possessions in a row, put the game back at a margin that IU was never really able to overcome. But that response from Wilkerson in that scenario was impressive, and he was really, as you look back at some of the performances on this game and guys who really played with some urgency, I thought he played that way really on both ends of the floor, and that stretch was emblematic of that. So that is our Hoosier Proud banner moment, and sorry to Eddie for throwing him off here, but and for reading part of the ad already, but we'll start it again. Our banner moment today, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Homefield Apparel, who is now in their 10th season sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their 4th as the presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network. As you know, Homefield has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you'll find anywhere. And since IU is their flagship school, more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner. They've already come out with a couple of shirts for the Big Ten championship game that's coming up this Saturday. So they've got, IU merch, new stuff rolling out all the time with the way the football season has gone. They've got the game breaker jackets that have come out. They've got pullovers, hoodies, T-shirts, long sleeves, anything you could need as you get into the holidays. I think their Black Friday / Cyber Monday sale may have just wrapped up. And so if you have not shopped from Homefield yet, you can use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. If that other promotion is no longer going on, again, that's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, that website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And, Coach, I will throw it to you first. Opening thoughts on IU's first loss of the season.
Yeah, just a bad basketball game on both ends. I think there was a lack of execution. I just think they were a step behind everything they kind of wanted to do. I thought both the players and the coaches tried to do some things. They just couldn't. They stuck in mud a little bit tonight. on both ends. And maybe you give credit to Minnesota. I thought they had the physicality, as you said in the opening, and they withstood some Indiana runs to get back in the game and take the lead. I thought the game really turned when that backup center blocked DeVries' dunk and then went down and got fouled. There were no points in that exchange on that foul, but then the next possession down, a 4-point play, and it went from 31-22 possibility to 29-26 because they fouled. We gave up a loose ball rebound on a free throw, and they hit a three, and that seemed to spark the Gophers to find their intensity. And I think the game turned at that point. I thought there was another there are like 3 turning points where Indiana's got to put its foot on the gas pedal and get some separation, and they never really did. And you've got to be able to do that on the road no matter who you're playing. We can sit here and lament that it's a bad team, and it is a bad team, but you're not going to win without proper execution and shot making. The free throw shooting was bad, the shots in the lane was bad, and the three-point shooting was bad. This team can win when it doesn't shoot well, but it's got to have the other facets of the game. And I don't think they guarded back cuts very well or the dribble drive very well. So all facets of the game were a struggle tonight, and yet Indiana was down 2 at the end. So I'm really disappointed in the performance because this is just a bad loss. But again, it's 7-1. You have a chance to redeem yourself against a quality opponent who's down 6 themselves right now on the road on Saturday. And the brand of basketball allowed a late run. So I'm going to try to hang my hat on that. As disappointed and as bad as Indiana played tonight, and it was, I still am all in. And, let's get back to practice and get ready for a couple tough games coming up.
Yep, and Ryan, first chance for a potentially real rant for this season. So we made it like a quarter of a way through the regular season before there was a real opportunity for a rant. So where do you want to go here?
First one of the DeVries era. Everybody lock in. Look, Indiana just didn't have it tonight. In every aspect, they weren't physical enough. The offense was not flowing. You say like they looked unfocused and they looked a little panicky with the ball. And there were times where somebody would get the ball and they're immediately looking for somebody else to give it to because they just felt out of sorts and uncomfortable. And credit Minnesota for that. They played hard. Indiana's going to have issues with physicality this year. I thought at times they matched it, and at times this season in games they have matched it. But that needs to be consistent throughout to win in the Big Ten. The Barn's an awful place to play. It's not a fun place to play. But they played to that tonight. They played down to that tonight. And, the other thing is with a team built like this, if you're not getting separation to shoot threes, which is going to be a big part of this offense, and teams are going to play to run them off the 3-point line. You got to drive, you got to get by your first defender and create some havoc beyond that first level of defender, or you're going to have to make free throws. And Indiana started the second half 3 of 10 from the free throw line. You start 10 of 10 from the free throw line, which is a bit much, but let's say you start 8 of 10. You're in this game at the end. And so it's a matter of execution at every level. Execution on offense, execution taking the physicality on defense, and then not getting pushed around on offense when they're pushing you off screens and pushing your cuts away and all of that stuff and fighting through that. So you draw the fouls by fighting through that. And then the other thing is executing when you have the chance for free points at the free throw line. All of those things they failed at tonight. Now, we've seen this team play down a little to its competition this year a couple times. This felt like that, but this felt a little deeper than what we've seen before because they just looked so uncomfortable in the half-court offense, which should not be the case with this program and with this coach and with the veteran players. So what you've got to hope for from this is that this is a learning experience, that this can't happen, and that they're able to bounce back on Saturday and look like the team they're supposed to look like, and look like the team that they have looked like for most of the season, and even dating all the way back to the summer. So this was as bad as they have looked under Darian DeVries on any level, at practice, exhibitions, whatever. Let's hope that they don't make a habit of it and they really learn from this. It's one Big Ten game, your own one, not the way you want to start, but if they can learn from this and get better, maybe it's the right time to lose one.
Yeah, I told you guys before we came on, I'm gonna keep trying to tell myself this is one game, this is one game. So I'll do my best to think of it that way. So now let's kind of have our 40 minutes in Bloomington, and maybe if this game was in Bloomington, things would have been different. But as you look at the first half, Coach, a couple things stood out to me. One, I thought the turning point that you mentioned was spot on. DeVries just seemed like he kind of slowed up a little bit, trying to line it up for the dunk. Ends up getting blocked. And what happened after that, in addition to what you said, IU put Minnesota on the free throw line the next 5 possessions. Now, they didn't score a ton of points on those. One of them, they made a free throw, missed one, and hit a 3, as you mentioned. So they didn't score a ton of points, but IU also on their next, including that DeVries dunk attempt, didn't score at all for those 5 trips and really allowed the game to tighten up. I had just said around that time, I think my wife came downstairs and I was like, they're up this many. Feels like they should be up more. And then lo and behold, you look up a minute later and they're not up hardly at all. Finished out with a couple of baskets toward the end of the half. But I thought the fouling and kind of the reasons for a lot of those was on those back cuts that you talked about, where they really got themselves kind of out of position and they would just grab and do that instead of actually being physical and trying to do some of the things that Minnesota was doing. And I thought the contrast in how Minnesota was cutting, how hard they were cutting, and how stationary IU was on offense compared to how they've been at other points in the season, or how hard they were cutting. You saw when Wilkerson, had that stretch where he was cutting to the basket. He got blocked a couple of times in the second half, but those were some of the best cuts that IU had. And so I thought that was a huge contrast between the two teams, looking at it that way, and allowed them to get to the free throw line and start to feel a little bit of success. Coach, any defensive thoughts as you have that? One of those is obviously going to lead into securing defensive rebounds. Minnesota had 14 second chance points in the first half, I believe. Didn't have any in the second half, if I'm looking at the box score correctly, but that was a huge way that they allowed themselves to hang around and that IU just couldn't put them away. So I thought there were stretches of good defense, but a lot of the little things they didn't do well tonight at all.
I think you're spot on there. I thought, again, they're trying to run people off the three-point line and force bad twos, and Minnesota hit some bad twos, but the back cuts gave them trouble all night long. They got Sisley in foul trouble. The Tyson kid, I think that's his name, Cade Tyson, right? He cut hard and was physical in the post. Sisley played 2 minutes, got 2 fouls. He was a half a step behind. When you lose a little bit of intensity defensively, and it was on the scouting report, and you don't snap that head and throw that hand or whatever their technique is, they were a quarter step, half step slow, and you're beat. You're either beat for a layup or then you got to grab. And that put them to the foul line at the end. And again, 33-33 at the half. When you were up 7 with a dunk, a pick 6, that's when the game to me got out of hand, because you gave life to a team that was hungry in their own place for their coach and overcoming some injuries. But no, I thought a couple of the rebounds, Indiana's got to go get the rebounds. I think they're going to be outmatched all the time. And when Indiana's doing well, they have 5 guys going to the ball and grabbing loose balls. And the sad thing is Indiana's going to give up some loose ball rebounds because they just don't have a guy that's above the rim rebounder to go snag it. But the free throw rebound, what they were doing was they were blocking out the 2 guys and sending the guard in, and they just fumbled it. They didn't secure it. Like, it was good strategy and good execution, and just a fumbled misplay. Like, no one intended to do that. Guy kicks it out, hits a 3 after 1 free throw. That's a 4-point play. It's now 29-26. And there were a couple long rebounds that bounced long or odd. Those don't bother me. And I think that happened a little bit in the first half. But 3 offensive rebounds in the first by 13:53 and the back cuts. Those were the things that I thought maybe they would back off a little bit in the second half, but I thought defensively in the second half they did a good job until they hit a couple 6-0 runs. So I just think they were slow. Again, I don't think the strategy was there. I don't think everyone's going to say, oh, they didn't play hard, or oh, they didn't want it. I don't buy that crap. I just don't think they were good. They were not a good defensive team tonight. They were a step slow, and Minnesota was a step fast with intense cuts and purpose. And you've got to match that on the road in order to win. And Indiana didn't do that. Like, those kids didn't intend to mess up defensively. They just did. And some of that is how you handle winning. Like, you're 7-0, you're ranked, you got a Louisville game coming up, and as much as coaches talk about it, you're up 29-22, you're up 12 to 7 early on, getting every layup you want. And that sometimes that just messes with athletes, and it shouldn't. You should play 40 complete, but I thought from that first TV timeout, I thought Indiana was just in a sludge, and I think that goes to the defensive end. They just were a little bit behind all night long.
Ryan, I think you're muted. It doesn't look like you're muted, but we can't hear you.
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Well, for some people, better. Others not. No, I think that the thing that I saw was for a veteran team. There's a lot of these guys are seniors, been playing college basketball for a long time. They just made mistakes, like easy mistakes. I mean, Tucker DeVries left Durkin several times on the perimeter. He overhelped and left a wide open. That's all that guy does is shoot threes. It feels like, and he's the guy from the perimeter for them. And he just left him a couple times to help out on drivers 15 feet from the basket. And it's like, you can't do that and not expect to get beat. And it's, every time he'd do it, you'd see him kind of go, oh, like, what am I doing? But it's like, you can't do that in the moment. And, Trent Sisley made it, he had a freshman night tonight. He looked like a freshman.
Yeah, he struggled.
He really struggled on both ends. He was just, didn't know what he was doing defensively. They got him isolated a couple times on drivers, and just, he was struggling. But some of these guys just made mistakes, and it's inexcusable to be a veteran who makes that kind of mistake. You make a mistake once in a game, it's fine. You consistently make mistakes and leave guys open, or don't set your feet, or don't, move your feet on the dribble, or reach in. It's, there was a time they had a guy trapped in the corner late, and it was DeVries and Wilkerson had him trapped. They didn't have to foul him. Let him, there was nowhere for him to go with the basketball, and they fouled him. Wilkerson reached in, and then DeVries went over the top, tried to rip the ball out. It's like, let him die on the vine right there. You've got him exactly where you want him. You don't need to take the ball away because he's going to give it up anyway. And, it's stuff like that where you just have to be smarter. You just have to play smarter, and you just have to execute where you're trying to execute. And sometimes you get behind and you get a little like antsy and uncomfortable. And that's the time when a veteran team needs to calm back down and reset and be calm. And I think that the fact that they're veterans is the reason why in some of these exhibitions, some of these games, they were able to make huge comebacks because they remained calm. They stayed with what they were doing, and they continued to attack. And we saw them do that a number of times. They did to Baylor in that exhibition, certainly. And so that's what you expect from a team like that. And so when they don't do it, that's what gets alarming. And in that environment tonight against a team they're clearly much better than, to not do that was a little alarming.
Two things that I agree with Ryan. Focus, you said early on. They just weren't focused on the little things. And then late, you try to overplay, right? Or, not overplay the passing lanes. You just try to win a possession by doing something outside of the scouting report. And in a shot clock situation, just follow the scouting report. If you do that 2 or 3 times and hit shots, you come back into a game. But then you're trying to jump and get a steal. Next thing you know, the three-point shooter gets a clean open shot. They were trying at the end too hard to defend, when they really should have been focused the whole time. And that's where the disappointment lies, is you have a senior team that has played good, solid defense. They just were focused and mistake-ridden tonight, all night long, it seemed. And it just gave life to Minnesota, to where guys were hitting shots. And then, it doesn't help when guys are throwing up shots and hitting shots like crazy. But you let the team get in a rhythm. But focus, and then at times trying to do too much to get back in the game. Those were I think the 2 reasons that the defense at the back end. I know we're talking second half now, but those were the problems.
Yeah, and just it's the first time we've seen them look rattled, and they looked very rattled across the board.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a couple things that go on with that, and then I want to talk a little bit about the offense in the first half. I wrote down in some of the notes that I had, I thought between the under 12 to about the under 4, I thought there were stretches in there. The defense in the first half was really good. One of those led into going into, I think it was the under 8 timeout, where they ended up getting a jump ball. Wilkerson kind of gets into it with somebody a little bit at the bottom of the pile. Like, that was a really good defensive possession. They just didn't sustain that level of intensity defensively for any period of time, and really, led to some of those easy shots, or you let up for a minute and they back cut you, and Sicily comes back in, makes it foul, and the guy gives him an and one on a back cut, as he gets beat. But the other thing I wrote down toward the end was just like, for a team that is as veteran as is now, albeit not together, just was kind of a lack of composure at times toward the end of the first half, of like really settling in and taking good shots. Dorn took a really bad three at some point toward the end of the half and things like that. So, which kind of takes me to the offense. I thought the other thing that really stood out offensively, and this was somewhat true of both halves. One, I thought the physicality really bothered them. I thought it bothered DeVries in particular. They really got up into him, even with a little bit smaller player, but were really physical with him, got up in him, basically dared him to try to, not shoot threes or come by him. He shot a lot of off balance threes in the first half. And we've talked about this in one of the other games, is that IU, for the offensive things that they do well, they don't have a ton of guys who can really break somebody down off the dribble. And I thought Connerway was really effective at that in the first half, but hit a couple threes, fell in love with that a little bit. And even in that stretch in the second half, like he just, 3 possessions in a row, went straight to the basket, ends up losing the ball on one so that we can watch a review to see if the guy's shorts moved or some nonsense like that. But anyway, I thought there were times that he was so important because he could actually go get them a bucket. And there were times that he ended up, sitting out because he made a silly turnover or foul or things like that. But I do think that's something, as you look ahead, Ryan, as who's going to be able to, if this team's not cutting hard and doing things like that, there's only a couple guys who can really go get him a bucket based on individual ability to get to the rim. And I thought Connerway was at in the first half, and seemed like he sat for a long time in the middle of the second.
Yeah, I mean, look, Connerway is. I think there was no reason to take him off the floor tonight, and make mistakes, whatever. That was a guy who was giving you something, and especially on the offensive end. And sometimes if a guy makes a mistake on defense, you have to leave him in the game because of the offense, and you're just not getting in the offense. The offense, as Coach said, was just in sludge all game and just really, really not working. And so you have to make sure that guys are out there who can get things to happen. And Connerway was one of the few guys attacking and willing to attack. I thought Wilkerson had a good stretch in the second half where he was backdoor cutting and getting stuff, and maybe not finishing at the rim every time, but he was at least putting pressure on the defense, which Indiana didn't do for most of the night. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that Connerway was Indiana's best player tonight on both ends. And I don't think anybody really matched what he was doing. I thought Sam Alexis gave you some good minutes, but really other than that, like, what'd you get? And from anybody. And so, yeah, he only wound up playing 23 minutes. I mean, I question that for sure.
Yeah, and Coach, I know you said Coach, I know you said you had something here. I thought the other thing that was telling and speaks a little bit to the inability to or kind of forcing IU to get their own shot. They ended up with 8 assists, I believe, in the first half. They had 4 by the first media timeout. So the last 16 minutes of the half, you only ended up with 4 assists. When this team is humming offensively, that's what they have to do, is move the ball, because they don't have the guys who can really create their own shot. And I thought that was pretty telling. So, Coach, I know you had something on the offense, but
yeah, I think, Andy, your comment about sustaining good play. The start, they weren't able to start. I put out on X that a good start to first 5 minutes of each half. Well, they did that in the first half, but they didn't do it in the second half, but they didn't sustain it. I think that's a very key point. And then at the 10-minute mark, I think was the second timeout, and Indiana was down 14, or was it 13:08, something, 14-17. Just played really bad in that second segment, turning the ball over and not guarding, not rebounding, and we're down 3. And then the next 2 segments, they go up 15-5. And that's that you said about that intensity and defense. That's when Indiana probably played some of its best defense, was from that 13:03 to the 3-minute mark, that 10-minute stretch. But here's something, you'll see it on Twitter. You're probably seeing, I'm not reading the chat tonight, but you're probably seeing it. Oh, DeVries did nothing. There are no adjustments. Like, I disagree with that. At the 10-minute mark, he called timeout, I believe. And the next thing he does is run a chin action, which is a back screen. Connerway throws it to the guard-to-guard back screen. And then they ran a rip screen, which is someone into the post, and then a down screen to try to get three-point shooters open. There were different things being run, low side ball screens when we get to the second half, high post entries, pinch post entries. It just seemed like nothing worked tonight. Like, sometimes as a coach, you can try to call stuff, and maybe you call the wrong stuff, but you can make all the adjustments you want, but it still has to be executed, right? And the players, again, I don't think this was an effort issue. I think this was a focus issue and a mistake issue. Like, you can play hard and make mistakes, and I think that's what Indiana did. But I thought early on the two dunks were well designed early on. The action was good at times, but I think you're right, Andy. They just weren't able to sustain that, and that leads back to focus, right? And boy, I'll tell you, all the times I've coached, when you feel your team is out of focus, you are just kind of like a magician trying to pull stuff out of a hat and do something and hope this works and call this timeout and do this at halftime, because it's tough to make those changes. And I think that's the zone offense. If you saw the zone offense, they tried to run a lob and it was shut down by Minnesota or not executed, where they screened two guys on the baseline and they had Bailey back underneath and it wasn't there. That's when Enright gets a rebound and a kick out. I thought Indiana's zone offense got good looks tonight. It got good looks. Like,
I was shocked Minnesota went to the zone late in the game. I was like, what are you doing?
Why are you going to the zone?
Man-to-man is great.
But you can't shoot the way Indiana shot and rebound the way they did first half, second half. I mean, it's just mistakes and missed opportunities all night long.
Yeah, so that's probably a good transition to the beginning of the second half, because the beginning was littered with missed opportunities as you go through there. You know, they really had gotten Minnesota's bigs in a ton of foul trouble. And for that stretch, were really aggressive trying to get to the basket. They drew tons of fouls. You know, they're 3 of, I mean, even by the first media timeout, were 2 of 6. By the end of the second, were 3 of 10.
Yeah, they started 3 of 10
in that scenario. And they even still with that had built a lead. I think Sisley made a 3. Alexis scored inside. DeVries, missed, but Alexis kind of got that ball like tipped up to him to a dunk. And it was at that point they had taken the lead, had played pretty well defensively. Minnesota only had 7 points in the second half at that point. And then they give up a quick, they hit 2 threes in a row, end up scoring 13 points in 5 possessions, and let the game really get back away from him again before Wilkerson had his stretch that I talked about in the banner moment. But I mean, the beginning of the half was just splitting free throws. He missed 2 threes on the second possession. Wilkerson split free throws. Conaway missed 2 free throws. Wilkerson got blocked by the basket. Bailey had a hook shot inside where they were trying to go after the big and missed. 1 and 2 from the free throw line. Again, just there were tons of chances in the beginning of that half. And then I thought after that, I don't know that they were afraid to get fouled or to go inside, but there was a long stretch where they did not, after they were 3 for 10, there was a stretch of probably 12 possessions where they didn't get to the free throw line at all and barely got to the free throw line the rest of the game. And I don't know if that was mental in terms of that, but it also was some of the cutting. They weren't getting a lot of shots going to the basket really until Wilkerson had that, stretch of like 3 possessions in a row where he got blocked twice and scored on the third one. That's what I look back at the beginning is make the free throws, get yourself, try to establish some control of the game. It was only tied at halftime. That was your opportunity. You'd gotten them in foul trouble. You'd really gotten yourself where you're basically going to be in the bonus for the rest of the half. And then again, I think Conaway sits out a bunch of time in the middle of that second half. Alexis sat out in the second half for a stretch. I thought he was really attacking the, kind of third string big man that Minnesota had in. I just felt like they went away from that. They went away from the guys who would have been able to take advantage of that. That's probably my biggest beef with the offense in the second half was those were 2 guys who were getting people in foul trouble. Keep trying to get to the line and figure it out. This team is shown to be a good free throw shooting team over the course of the season so far. So, Coach, thoughts on early second half, any adjustments that you saw them make on either end of the floor as they came out of the locker room?
Yeah, so we see a little bit of the strategy. It didn't work tonight, but you can see a little bit of what's in Coach DeVries' playbook. Early on, his first play was a very low wing side pick and roll. So he's trying to get in the lane from a different angle. That was one of the attempts to beat the Minnesota defense. Then they went to the high post entry where they have pin downs on both sides and can curl and flare off of it. They were trying to take advantage, and that's actually what Wilkerson kind of did late when he would back cut. They overplay. If they switch, then you can back cut and overplay and get some cuts. They had a double side pick and roll at one point. So they had a staggered double late in the game, which they flared DeVries off on the shooter. It just it wasn't executed very well. So again, that's on everybody. I'm not trying to put blame one way or the other. They weren't ready to execute. That's on the coaching staff. The coaching staff was trying to call things, and the players didn't do it. But I thought there were a lot of things. And the other thing, guys, is you saw how we're going to try to handle size. In the big, they doubled. They post doubled early in the second half in a couple situations, and then rotated off the backside. So we'll have to watch for that as Indiana plays some bigs that are going to be back to the basket type bigs. I think Indiana has in their playbook. So in a night, for me as a coach, when it's not fun watching because the ball's not going in, I do see that there are some things in DeVries' playbook that it's pretty wide playbook, and that's something that I'm going to have patience with over the long haul. That there were attempts to get Indiana going tonight, and it didn't work out. Whether those attempts were the right ones or wrong ones, obviously a coach will be hard on himself too. Did I call the right stuff? Did I implement the right scouting report? All that stuff. And the players will be too. But there were attempts to do certain things throughout the game, and it just seemed, again, like no buttons worked tonight from Coach DeVries or players tonight. But I wanted to point that out because I know the narrative will be Coach DeVries did nothing. Anytime Indiana loses, the coach did nothing and the players are awful. Like, there was a lot of stuff in here that could have worked if they were just cutting harder or doing things. It goes back to what we're sounding like a broken record. Focus, hard cut, intensity. All of that stuff hurt on both ends tonight. I think the scheme and the players are okay. I just think they got to play better.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Ryan, before I throw it to you for second half thoughts, that he did switch defensively. He did this in the first half, was starting to put Enright on Cade Tyson because he's not really a back to the basket type guy. And so you weren't going to get burned a ton. He was the one that they were post doubling. They weren't doubling everybody, I don't believe. Right. He was the one they were really trying to get the ball out of his hands. But I thought Enright did a pretty good job making him uncomfortable after the start he'd gotten off to. So that was just another adjustment. But Ryan, other thoughts from you on the second half? I don't know. We got in. Connerway had a good stretch there for a little bit. Wilkerson made a three toward the end, but they missed some open threes as well that could have got him back in after they started pressing. But any kind of overarching second half things that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, Tucker DeVries was 1 of 5 in the second half, 1 of 4 from 3 with, just 3 points. And, when he's playing well, even if he's not scoring, he's contributing offensively, and he just didn't do that tonight. He had no assists in the second half. He just, oddly enough, in 17 minutes, he was +2, and I don't know how that's possible. But that's, again, folks, don't sell out on the plus-minus stat. But I just thought that they had nothing going offensively. They shot 33% in the second half. They shot 26% from 3. They need to make up for that. Minnesota was in really bad foul trouble. They need to make up for that by being aggressive and attacking. And they did in somewhat, but they weren't attacking strong enough to get calls and later in the half. And then when they did get to the line, as we talked about, they're 7 of 14 from the free throw line in the second half. Those 7 points, you lose by 9, and you missed 7 shots at the free throw line in the second half alone. That's your game right there. If you're having an off night, there are things you can do. And one of them is attack aggressively and get fouled and go to the line and make shots that way. And they just didn't. I mean, and that's really the game. And so look, when you rely on the 3-pointer so much, you're going to have nights where you can't hit shots. So you have to be able to augment that in other ways. We've talked about back cutting. We've talked about, movement on offense to try and get something, talking about throwing it into the post to try and create more, more movement, put more pressure on the D. But the thing you got to do is go to the hoop aggressively and strong. And good things happen when you do that. I didn't think they did it enough tonight when things were going bad.
Yeah, I just looked. I mean, they shot 10 free throws in the first 7:25, let's say 7.5 minutes of the second half. They shot 4 the rest of the
way.
And I thought at times, Wilkerson got blocked a couple times inside. The one toward the end should have been a foul based on, the guy was in the restricted area. But generally speaking, just because the free throws didn't go in, didn't make what they did at the beginning of the half the wrong strategy to continue with, and they seemed to get away from that a little bit. But again, I think part of that was not having Connerway in the game for a big stretch in the second half, and I don't think he was in foul trouble. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there. I'll have to look back and see if he ended with 4 fouls, but I think he picked him up late. So we shall see. All right. Well, that'll be it for our 40 minutes in Bloomington. Make sure you go to assemblycall.com and subscribe to our free email newsletter. And when we come back, we'll continue our breakdown of IU's 73-64 loss at Minnesota. We'll point out all of the moments from today's game and share a few stat sheet stories as well. You're listening to Assembly Call. Stick with us.
This is Ethan Happ, and I never listen to the Assembly Call, especially the episodes that Ryan is on.
Man, and Ethan Happ paying us a visit. Just when you thought this night couldn't get any worse. All right, you're listening to the Assembly Call.
I'd say hi, but
post-game show. Probably not. Wisconsin was playing after IU, so I'm sure he's not. I'm Andy Bottoms here with the coach Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips, and we are breaking down IU's 73-64 loss to Minnesota. Now it's time for today's Hall of a Moment to look at some key moments that made a difference in the game. One I'll throw out. I alluded to it a little bit ago. I think one of the very first possessions that Counter Enright guarded Cade Tyson on, he was just hounding him all over the place. Ended up leading to a moving screen call because he was so tight on him that they turned into him and did that. I thought he did some good things defensively as well. Had a rebound that was that got kicked out for a 3. He hit that one runner that was kind of end of shot clock, no, yes type scenario, and led the way with 7 assists. So I thought some good things from Enright, but in particular, I thought the move to put him and give somebody else a different look on Cade Tyson was a good move, and he showed what he could do against Haggerty. I thought this was definitely a different challenge for him defensively, but thought he did a nice job of that. Drew some fouls in that regard, and so that was one of the moments, at least stood out to me as an adjustment in the first half. Ryan, any moments that you wanted to hit?
My favorite moment of the night was Sam Alexis had back-to-back buckets for Indiana to take it from they were down 40-39. He had he took an assist from Enright and laid it in, and then the next possession, Tucker DeVries misses a 3, and Sisley, I think it was Sisley, goes up for the rebound, tips it up, and Alexis catches it out of the air and dunks it to give Indiana a 43-40 lead with 13:47 to go. And I at that point I was like, okay, they've got some momentum here. Like they're gonna start to impose their will, and they just didn't. I mean, they were scoreless for 4 minutes after that, 3 minutes after that, and by the time they finally scored again, they were down 48-43 before they scored again. So that was a big moment, though, and I thought that it just showed, like, Sam Alexis just works. I mean, he may not be the biggest – he's not the biggest interior guy. He's not the fastest, whatever, but that guy works really hard, and he's always around the ball, and he makes things happen. And I think they should have played him more tonight than Bailey. I just didn't think Bailey was getting enough done.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys what you thought about that. I mean, those guys continue to basically just take half of the center minutes. If you look in total, Bailey plays 20 minutes, and this had Alexis at 19. But Bailey ends up with 6 points, 1 of 5 from the floor, 4 rebounds. Alexis had 10 points, 5 of 7 from the floor. Did miss those 2 free throws in the second half, only 3 rebounds for him. One of those was, 2 of those were offensive rebounds that led that he scored on. So only 1 defensive rebound for him. Did have a couple assists. I thought, they struggled on the boards. But coach, kind of your assessment of those guys tonight. And there were times I thought with DeVries struggling a little bit, would you give him a little bit of a break? He played almost the whole game. And would you have considered in this game playing Bailey and Alexis together for a couple minutes and maybe letting Bailey play outside a little bit more? I don't know, just for a different look. I just, DeVries to me didn't have it, and that was fairly clear early on. And so, like, do you give him a break for a couple minutes and try the 2 of them on the floor? I know Sisley wasn't, kind of a capable replacement for DeVries for, based on the foul trouble and some of those things, but it was, I don't know, at least something that crossed my mind.
Yeah, I'm not taking DeVries out. I mean, I'm not taking Wilkerson out a whole lot. I'm just not. They've got to play. But what also hurts that is when Sisley picks up 2 fouls. That's someone who can take some DeVries or Wilkerson minutes. And Dorn struggled tonight as he got back to 20-some minutes, and I thought he was really ready to contribute. I thought he struggled. So you only had one contributor off the bench in Alexis tonight. So add that to I think it took a lot of negatives in order for Indiana to get beat by this Minnesota team. Bad offense, bad defense, bad rebounding, no bench contributions, your best players struggling through major portions. Like everything bad that you could write about this basketball team happened tonight. So that goes back to it's just one game. Like if Indiana plays this bad every game, yes, but we haven't seen that. And as Ryan said, you make free throws to overcome a bad run somewhere else. And Indiana didn't do that. So like almost every facet of the game, Minnesota was better than Indiana tonight. And it's horribly disappointing and it's not acceptable, but it happened. So I think the lack of bench minutes kept DeVries out. And your best players, this is what I like about Coach DeVries is that you just got to have a belief in your best players. Like one game, you don't sit them for a lot of time if they're not doing anything. Now, if they're not doing what you ask them to do, or you call a play and they run something else, that might be something different. But maybe a few more minutes rest. But if you're not getting contributions off the bench, you got to go try to win it, and you hope that he plays his way through that adversity, and he kind of did not tonight.
Yeah, I mean that was my thought. Just a few minutes. It wasn't anything. I mean, he played the whole first half. And really, I thought, that showed up a little bit in the dunk that got blocked that we talked about, where, is he a guy who is going to play that many minutes? He did sit for a few minutes in the second half. So, not advocating for a wholesale move to a too big lineup by any means. God help us all if we get back to that point. But I did think Alexis had some good moments, and I was a little bit, he was out in the middle of the half of the second half when it seemed like Minnesota pulled back ahead a little bit.
Yeah, I think the minutes thing is interesting because these guys have played because of injuries that have been unfortunate. These guys have played a lot of minutes early, and that's going to affect you. And I'm not saying that's the reason they lost tonight or whatever, but it won't be shocking if at sections of games they look sluggish and have to get a second win because, DeVries has been playing 30 something minutes a night in these games, and Wilkerson as well. And in some cases Enright. And I just think that wears on you. And at some point you got to catch a second wind. And I mean, you got to fight through it. There's no alternative to it with this team right now. Dorn is still coming back. I think we saw him hit a couple shots over the weekend, thought like, okay, maybe he's rounding into form. Ristich got 3 minutes tonight. But Harris is out until at least likely January. I mean, they've got to find a way to get something out of the bench consistently. That's why I think Sisley is such a big swing player for this team. If he can give you some minutes, you can steal for those starters and play well. When he plays well, they look great. Tonight, he did not play well. He looked like a freshman playing his first Big Ten game, quite frankly. And guess what? He was. But if they can get Sisley to consistently provide good minutes and you can get, Dorn to hit some threes and give you a space to rest Wilkerson or Connerway for a bit, and you can get, Harris back and he can give you some minutes and Alexis can give you more. They're going to need that this season because if not, this team is going to be so out of gas in late January. So I think that you're going to have moments like this. You don't want a whole game like that, but at times they are going to look sluggish because of how many minutes they have played. And on the road, you need help off the bench. It's if your bench scores on the road, typically you're going to win. So I think that will be a huge thing to watch moving forward with Indiana.
Coach, any moments that you wanted to call out before we move to stats?
Again, I'm probably going to go the unpopular route, and I don't really give a damn. But I'm pretty happy that Sisley, when he was really bad tonight in the first half, chance in the second half, he got a chance to shoot the basketball. He made a three. Like, even in a crappy game like this, as a coach, you don't just sit there and give up on the season and, oh, we're not going to win another game, and go into practice and scream. And yeah, you point out the things that were wrong, and then you point out the things that were good. Like, Sisley came to play in the second half. Now, he didn't accumulate a lot of stats, and he didn't get beat defensively. He's one-hand tipping rebounds when he can't get to it, right? Like, the emphasis at halftime was, again, the rebounding, and you've seen that they've worked on it. A lot of guards, if they can't get it, they try to tip it to somebody else. Did it work out tonight? No. Too many points in the first half rebounding. But you see signs of adjustments. You see signs of player adjustments. You see signs of adversity happening with this team, from coming back and winning games to now their first loss. And I think the accumulation of all that is something to hang our hat on. And when we beat a team that we're not supposed to, it's because of these things. Even in bad losses that get added on. The consistency obviously needs to get better. But that the Alexis dunk off the tip, but there's a Sisley tip to Alexis as he was fighting and falling. So the young man could have really had his head down. First game on the road as a freshman, 2 fouls in 2 minutes. But I thought he came back and tried to play as well as he possibly can. That was a moment for me. You guys have taken most of the other one. I'll say is I'm not sure what Heinz Anderson was looking at on that fast break layup where the guy bumped the defender 2 or 3 times, then extended the elbow right in front of his face. Like, that's the officials had nothing to do with this game. No. But that one call is atrocious, and they need to be held accountable. Like, I know they're trying to take the charge out of the game, and I've been a big proponent of that as well, but on-ball defense where you lower and bump 3 or 4 times on the way down and then extend, and Robbie Hummel even was like, how is that not a foul? Like, that's right in front of your face. That's
or even a block, changer. Even if you want to call it on Connerway. I wouldn't agree with it.
Has to be something.
Yeah,
but that's 2 points for Minnesota, and we can't, and that should have been points off the board, and Indiana has an opportunity to go down and score. Again, that had nothing to do with the outcome of the game whatsoever. But since I'm looking for moments, I did write that down. Like, that's the start of the second half where Indiana was struggling, and that's 2 points that shouldn't have been on the board, in my opinion.
Well,
and officials do a hard job. It's very, very difficult. But my goodness, that was clear.
Yeah, I mean, especially he's right on top of the play, and I don't know if he was the one who was. They called the foul on Tyson when IU was pressing, where he, again, kind of clear extension. I'm pretty sure Anderson is the guy who was right on top of the play, and the other guy all the way across the court has to call it. When it's like, what are you looking at? That you're not you're going to let that go? It wasn't a flop, and I don't know who it was. Again, the one in the restricted area when Wilkerson drove to the basket and some of that stuff. It was like, but it was at times your typical like kind of Big Ten. Hey, go beat the hell out of each other. And then there was other times it wasn't. So
yeah,
you know,
it was
welcome to Big Ten play in December, same as it ever was, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's Ken Palm that has the officiating list of how many games they play and how many in a row, right? I know one guy was at the Notre Dame game last night. You know,
I think Anderson. Anderson was at Michigan State, Iowa.
Yeah, I think.
Sure. Yeah. So
go ahead.
This got to be better.
Yeah, the thing that bothered me was there would be contact that was so obvious and heavy that was called, and then, you know, a guy cuts and a guy has a hand on his hip and it gets called. You know, I mean, that's it's just an inequitable level of contact.
Protect the shooters,
and they were
not
bad.
The cutters.
Yeah, they
Let
were
the
bad.
Cutters get bumped and held, right?
And I'll say it wasn't like this was wildly favored Minnesota. I think that there were some calls that Minnesota had that they absolutely had a right to be upset about. So it's just the inconsistency makes the game unwatchable. You know, I mean, it really, especially in a game like this where the offense is already bad. You don't have to bog it down with bad calls. So, yeah.
Anyway, all right, let's move on to stats. I knew we'd get to the refs eventually, which again, to Coach's point, we're not the difference in this game, but we're not good, to be fair. All right, now let's take a look at a few stat sheet stories from tonight's game. So we go inside the numbers. A reminder that this segment is brought to you by our friends at Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or visiting jacksonhewitt.com. All right, Ryan, I'll throw this to you first. What stats really stood out to you?
I mean, they got out rebounded 40-25. And when you're not making shots,
good?
Yeah, that's not good, Andy. Not very good at all.
Oh, okay.
I think that, you know, when you're not making shots, you've got to rebound, and they didn't do either. Also, you know, 12 of 20 from the free throw line was pretty atrocious. Again, in a game where you're not making shots and your offense is not running, you got to make free throws, particularly on the road. You got to make free throws on the road whenever, but especially in a game like this. And then the last one that got me was, I was shocked that they only had where was it? How many turnovers did they have? They only had 7 in the game. For how disjointed that was, I was shocked that they won the turnover battle 16-7, despite the outcome. It's kind of crazy to me.
Coach, what one stood out to you?
I'm going to piggyback on the turnovers. 7 is outstanding, but the 6 first half turnovers were very sloppy. Loose passes, soft passes, passes in traffic. Like, again, I think it just goes back to focus. You know, they weren't even aggressive turnovers, like trying to make something happen. That was a good choice. You just didn't execute, and the defender makes a nice play. I don't think that the first half. So numbers can be deceiving. Like, that's a great number. But maybe you're up 4 or 5 points at halftime if you don't sloppily throw the ball in the middle of the lane. Like, I thought they were sloppy, and I know we have to allow Connerway a little bit of leeway because he's just that kind of player. But I thought that was an issue. And then 3 fast break points only. Indiana has to get stops and get rebounds and get out and play their pace. I thought Minnesota and Coach Medvedev, with what he ran, dictated the pace tonight of play, and Indiana couldn't get enough stops. And, you know, yes, they got those turnovers, but when you only get three fast break points, that's a way to win a basketball game. And, again, with all the other deficiencies tonight, I think that speaks volume. And then, obviously, you got to go to the shooting. You shoot 40% in the game, 29.6%. and 60% from the free throw line. This team's not going to win. Like, they have to shoot because those other areas are a little bit tougher. That's their strength. And when you're that bad in your strong area, the other areas are going to suffer. So those are the stats that stood out to me.
Yeah, I thought your point about the tempo was a good one. I know they brought that up on the broadcast, I think, leading into it, or maybe it was in the pregame show. About because of the guys that Minnesota was down, they were really going to try to slow the game down. I thought in the middle of the second half, they just kind of grounded to a halt. Were willing to run as much clock as they could and really keep things there. It ends up being a 67 possession game, which really was not as many as it probably would have been if not for all the free throws. I mean, that really adds up a little bit at the end. I mean, up to that point, you were, you know, kind of low 60s in possessions, and IU's certainly not shooting the way they did is not going to be able to do that. And I think to your other point, if you look at the things that IU not shooting the ball well, then you can't give up 14 second chance points in the first half. Now, they shut that off in the second half and didn't give up any. I think only gave up 2 offensive rebounds after halftime. But you got to do a whole lot of little things correctly in that scenario to be able to do it. So that's where the turnovers come in, and that's where giving up those easy second chance points comes in, and that's where missing free throws comes in. And you know, you limited your margin for error so much by shooting the ball so poorly and really being more stagnant offensively than we've seen in a while, that there really weren't a lot of, you know, the only place they really made that up was in points off turnovers, even though, to your point, Coach, that was not fast break points, but it was 22-5 in points off turnovers, as you look at it that way. But then you know, some of the rebounding and stuff like that really offsets that. Got outscored on points in the paint. Just, you know, 7 block shots from Minnesota is a lot. I felt like probably 4 of those were against Wilkerson, and different
kind
things
of
like
in
that.
a grouped time period too, was it?
Yeah, yeah, they were clustered together quickly.
Yeah, points off turnovers could be when you get a turnover, then go down on offense and score the next possession, right? That's how that stat reads.
Yeah, it's
right?
even if
not
it's
really like. Yeah,
it's not
you got to run
any,
out on something. Yeah.
We didn't get any breakaways, threes, you know, momentum changers like we've had in the past, where you kick the ball up and you get a guy on a rebound, you're out running and kick the ball out. We didn't get many of those, and so more of that was more of a pace conversation. But yeah, not good.
Yeah, I think the other thing, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but you look at the minutes of how they were distributed. Connerway at 23 had 18 points in 23 minutes. Did have 3 turnovers. A couple of those were sloppy, but he also had 4 steals. couple assists. Him taking 6 3-pointers is not really what you want. Did have some success in the first half. Thought he settled a couple times in the second half, and that's a teaching point for them. But I did think there was about a 5-minute stretch from 9-ish minutes to about 4 where he was out. That was the game really started to get away from him again in that situation. And a guy who could really seem like he could get to the rim on whatever defender Minnesota was going to put on him, and finished well inside was one that would have liked to see him play more minutes. He did have 2 fouls in the first half, which I think got him taken out for the last few minutes of that half, but really didn't get in foul trouble. His 4th foul didn't come till late when IU was fouling on purpose, essentially. So, that would be one I would want to try to figure out a way to get him a few more minutes as you go through it. But I think we've hit on most of the other big numbers. So we will take our last break, and when we come back on the assembly call, we'll hand out our awards for the game, and we'll look ahead to IU's upcoming opponent. That's all next here on the assembly call.
This is Tim Priller, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call.
Welcome back to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Andy Bottoms here with the coach Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips, and we are breaking down IU's first defeat of the season as they fall 73-64 at Minnesota in the Big Ten opener. And it is now time for our game balls, which are presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. At Bloom Environmental, they provide expert radon, mold, asbestos, and crawl space solutions to protect homes and improve indoor air quality. Call today for a free estimate and mention Assembly Call and get 10% off of your system. You can learn more about our friends Allie and James at www.bloomenviro.com. All right, and with that, it is time for our game balls. And Coach, I will go to you first. Who gets your game ball from this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go Tayton Connerway. Like you said, the 23 minutes, we'd like to see him get a little more minutes there. And the only blemish was some of those turnovers. But I thought he started the game off well, and he is the guy that could get downhill. And he was 6 of 11, 18 points, got a couple rebounds, couple assists. 4 steals on the game. I thought he's going to have to make things go as teams ratchet up the defense like they did tonight. And I thought that he was the best player tonight on both ends. The nice steal when he doubled down on Tyson Kidd, I think one time. Like, he does a lot of things. He's a very, very aggressive player, so you got to live with some of the questionable things at times, as Coach has told us. But I think he has been really good so far this year, and I thought tonight was one of his better games overall.
Ryan, what about you?
Gotta agree, Tayton Connerway. I didn't think it was close. 18 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, most of those in the first half, and I think maybe all of them in the first half. I don't know. But then he had 4 steals as well. So he was doing it on both ends. His energy is going to be huge for Indiana moving forward. And I agree with you, Andy. I just don't think you can afford to have him on the bench for as long as they did at times tonight, especially in a game where your offense is not crisp. You need somebody who is an X factor who can shake things up. And he's that guy. He's a guy who could turn the corner, go to the rim. He can find guys. He can hit a shot if he's open. But with teams certainly going to push Tucker DeVries and Lamar Wilkerson off the 3-point line, he's a guy that's going to get shots from the perimeter, and he's also going to have to be a guy that's driving ability makes it so teams can't cheat.
Yeah, it'll be a clean sweep for me. I'll give mine to him as well. Just thought in a game where the offense either wasn't working or wasn't being executed well, he was a guy who could do things on his own to attempt to break him out of that. And I thought he did that in that little stretch toward the end of the game in the second half, trying to find ways to get him back in, where he had scored on 3 straight drives, either getting to the free throw line, I think in the middle one, and scoring on the other 2. So he will get my game ball as well. Believe if these are updated, that becomes his second game ball of the season. So he now trails Tucker DeVries, who is at 4. He has 2, and then a quartet of guys has 1 apiece. And with that, we'll go to the Hoosier Hustle Award. Ryan, I'll come to you first for this one. Who gets the Hoosier Hustle Award for you tonight?
Can I give it to Tate Connerway? Because I really want.
No, you may not. You know the rules. We cannot do it.
I guess I'll give it to Lamar Wilkerson. I thought that he was pretty active in the second half, and I think he struggled at times defensively, but he was there most of the night. He was engaged, and I thought that, he was one of those guys. Those back cuts in the second half really made some things happen, and he's really skilled at that. And I think he's able to do that because people are overplaying him on the 3-point line. He's able to get back door, but I guess I would give it to him. Or the only other guy I considered was Sam Alexis. He just didn't play enough.
Coach, what about you?
I'm right along with Ryan. I think Lamar Wilkerson gets it, especially for that stretch where Indiana did have a shot, getting back, 53-51. He hits a big 3 late shot clock, then has a couple really big defensive plays, and then DeVries hits a 3. I think, again, if you're going to try to find some positives in it, like there was a guy who struggled, but then he stayed in it and late made some contributions. Like that's going to pay off in a game where you do come back and win, or maybe you upset a team, and you have some plays when it seems like these guys were struggling tonight. They just were struggling. But at times they also found enough energy to make some plays. Lamar Wilkerson for Hustle Award for me.
Yep, that's who was going to get mine as well. I thought there were stretches in the middle of the first half. He was, pretty intense, getting on the floor for loose balls, was able to make things happen. Have continued to be pretty impressed with what he's been able to bring to the table defensively. Not the guy who's going to get a ton of steals like Connerway, but is in a stance and intent on that end. And I thought just played really hard. A couple of those back cuts didn't lead to anything, but if we're talking hustle in terms of really movement and continuing to try to show the fight to get back in the game and to try to win it, like he really embodied that tonight as much as anybody for me, with what he did tried to do in the second half, and so he will get mine as well. That is his second Hoosier Hustle of the season. He is now tied for the lead with Enright and Sicily in that category, and Sam Alexis, and then Connerway and DeVries each have 1. So all right, with that, big day on Saturday for any number of reasons that everyone is aware of. But from a basketball perspective, game against Louisville, they are also coming in off a loss. They lost at Arkansas 89-80 tonight. So they will be coming in looking to get back on the winning side of things. That was also their first loss of the season. Like IU had beaten Kentucky at home and Cincinnati in a neutral site game that I believe was here in Cincinnati. So those are kind of their 2 best wins on the season. Lost to Arkansas. I can assure you that the game will be played at a much faster pace than tonight's game was. I will say with great certainty that will be the case. Shoot a ton of threes, similar to what IU saw when they played them last year. They've got, Michael Brown, a really impressive freshman, had a huge dunk that was made headlines tonight, although it's kind of one where it's like, do you want the dunk to make headlines when you were losing by like 17 in the first half? But it was impressive nevertheless. You got Ryan Conwell, a guy that IU went after a bit in the portal. He's been a really effective shooter for them, and they shoot 50. This is updated through tonight's game, so they've shoot over 54% of their field goal attempts come from 3-point range. They play at the 49th fastest adjusted tempo. Their offense is 4th in adjusted efficiency. They shoot great from 2-point range. And so they do a lot of things well on offense. They play fast. Conwell has already taken 74 threes on the season and made 31 of them, so 42%. So they are going to take and make a lot of threes. So that's one thing. IU'd had some success early in the season running guys off the 3-point line. That will be certainly tested in this game, and Louisville probably just going to shoot him anyway. So we'll see. But this is definitely a big test for IU on a neutral court. Going to be an exciting environment, exciting Saturday for IU fans in Indianapolis, and this one will get things rolling at 2 p.m. at Gainbridge. So, Coach, I don't know how much of Louisville you've watched for bracketology purposes or just for at your own leisure, but any overarching thoughts you have on them?
They want to outscore you. I don't think they guard very well, but to be a top level team, I think they're, probably they could be a 3, 4, 5 seed, and I think they're a very good team and should be favored over Indiana. But there's probably going to be a little more opportunities to shoot the basketball and score against Louisville. But you got to outscore Louisville. They are very, very impressive. And the Conwell kid was good at Indiana State a couple years ago. I'm not sure what he did at Xavier. They had a tough year, and then he went to Louisville. And again, in that, Pat Kelsey offense, that's a dream for shooters. So I'm looking for a fast-paced game. I think it'll be a tough game for Indiana, but an opportunity to really put this one behind if you can pull off that game Saturday. That'll make up for that loss. And if not, you just get back into it at Penn State at home and keep moving one game at a time and try to get better.
Yeah, agreed. If you look at their defensive numbers, their defensive efficiency overall is actually pretty good. They're 7th in 2-point defense. They do have a couple of big guys who are decent shot blockers, but they've limited people to 29% shooting on threes. That maybe water will find its level at some point with that. I think you are going to find IU's will be able to have opportunities to get some open shots, maybe in a way that they didn't tonight. But defensively, it is certainly going to be a struggle for IU in that one. So it should be a good game right now. Louisville projected to win by 3 on KenPom 81-78. So should be a bit higher scoring than tonight. And we'll see what happens. Like I said, as that gets things going in Indy on Saturday. All right. We'll wrap up here in a minute. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. You can use the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. And with that, gentlemen, it is time for our last call. Ryan, final thoughts on IU's first loss of the season.
First, one thing, take advantage of the Back Home Network having a ton of coverage of Indiana-Ohio State football game. And Tricia Whitaker and Sidney Parrish interviewed Don Fisher, and it just went up on it today on the Back Home Network YouTube page. Go watch it. It's great. They did a great job. Now to basketball. This was the worst showing of the DeVries era. The fact that we got to game 8 before that happened, we should all be thankful for. But I mean, there were some concerns tonight, and the offense really struggled with a physical team, a physical defense, being pushed off the 3-point line, and then not converting when they did have chances. They did have open shots they missed. They did have free throws they missed. They weren't playing a great offensive team, gave up 73 points. There was a lot in here that to not like. And it's okay if you're sitting there going like upset and not liking it. That's fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now we got to give the team a chance to respond. And we've said this for years. I've said this. I repeat this after every single either big win or big loss is it's not about that game. It's about how you respond to it. And when you lose like this, it's a Big Ten game. You don't want to lose that. It's a road game. It's tough to win on the road, but you have a chance to pick one up here. How do you respond to this game and this performance? Do you go out and just go guns blazing at Louisville, or do you hang your head and get run off the floor? We've seen a lot of the latter in this program over the past 10 years. So this is their chance to prove to people that it's a different time in Indiana basketball. Louisville's a good team. They lost tonight, but they're a good team. And they're going to play tough against Indiana on Saturday. They lost. They're going to come out pissed off just like Indiana is. So how do you respond to this loss? People are going to start questioning you. They're going to throw you out of the top 25, say you didn't belong. How do you prove that that's not the case? Can you? And so that's on all those guys. Again, these are veteran guys. They don't have time. This is their last season. They can't afford to have a lot of these games. So yeah, I think that's just where we're at. We're going to see how this is a new program. We're going to see how this program handles a loss. We've never had to watch it before. So we'll see on Saturday. I'm excited for that game. I'm excited for an entire day of Indiana sports of the like we have not seen in a long time, if ever. And let's see if they can give us a good opening to the day.
Coach, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, we kind of knew about this season that we're going to win some games we probably shouldn't win and then lose some games that we probably shouldn't. Tonight was a game we shouldn't have lost, and we did because of all the things that we've talked about. It was just not good execution and focus. I think I enjoy this basketball team. I enjoy these basketball players. I enjoy what Coach DeVries is doing and his staff. I think we're in a good shape going forward. But this is a disappointing loss. I have a feeling we'll probably have a few more disappointing losses, but we'll also have some highs in there coming back. And that's what I am going to be very, very patient with Coach DeVries and this basketball program, because I think things are trying to be done right. That doesn't mean they're always going to execute and they're always going to be on focus, and tonight was one of them. So hang in there, Hoosier fans. Don't jump off the ship. I mean, it's going to be a rocky year, I think, but a fun year overall. I will be at Kilroy's at 11 a.m. There's an IU Alumni Association thing going there. I'm just going to go there. I'm not sure if I'm going to the basketball game or not. I might just be a fan and stay there. I know Crimson Cast is going to be at the Tap with the IU Alumni Association on Mass Avenue. I know Home Field is having something at Brothers at 5 o'clock, I believe. And so those are some places where if you're going to be in town, if you want to come buy me a beverage, probably afterwards. If I'm going to be media, I'll probably wait until afterwards. But I've never passed up a free beer. So Kilroy's, if I start drinking at 11, I probably won't go to the game. But let's have a good time this Saturday, basketball and football. It's a great time to be a Hoosier, and keep your heads up. And it's better than being a boiler any day.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I mean, I will, on the football front, Galen's been doing an awesome job of putting out content each day. I know he's got other stuff planned for the course of the week, as well as the events that you guys talked about. So lots of good stuff to get you ready for the game, and definitely excited for that one as I live here in Ohio State country. Would like nothing more than to come out with the win there. But as for this game, kind of going to go back to what I kept telling myself before, that it's just one game. This is not a moratorium on who Darian DeVries is going to be as a coach and what this team is going to be this year and all those things. It was a frustrating game to watch on a variety of fronts that, for all the things they did poorly, there were still opportunities to, seize control of the game and be able to right the ship, and they just couldn't do it. And so this will be one of the first tastes of, we've seen some in-game things where this team has come back, and whether it was the trip over the summer or the Baylor exhibition or some of these other situations, they've bounced back in games in a way that they did not tonight. And so it'll be interesting to see how they respond to this loss. I think playing a good opponent is a way that they'll easy one to get up for. How do they respond to this in a game where it's going to be a little bit freer, a little bit easier to maybe find the shots that they want to be able to take? And so excited to see how they respond. Great opportunity against Louisville. Loss doesn't kill you by any means as you think about things from an NCAA tournament perspective, but a great opportunity to pick up what would be a quad one win from now until Selection Sunday. And so really looking forward to seeing how this team responds. I think they will respond well, be able to shoot the ball a bit better. But no way to sugarcoat it. Disappointing loss. They did a lot of things poorly. As we talked about, you have to do a lot of things. And a lot of things have to not go your way, or you have to do a lot of things poorly to lose to what is expected to be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. That's exactly what happened tonight. Lots of stats, individual performances, whatever you want to say, didn't go the way that they needed to for IU to be able to get a win, and saw some fight and want to continue to see how this team fights back and builds over the course of the season as they work together a bit more. So we will see what happens on Saturday and then go from there. But that will do it for tonight's show. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of our live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear during the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our logo. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Saturday. Until then,
take it from me, Robert Johnson. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Here I come. This is Tonsoni.
That's it. We're done. No more questions.
Ryan's being stupid again.
I think they've gotten enough show.
All right. Well, I think I've given all I could to talk about this performance. So ready to move on to other things. I would say.
I've spent better nights than watching this game, but
yeah, we'll see. Interested to see how they bounce back as they, head into these next couple big games and got Penn State in the middle. So got to be able to do that one, but feels like missed opportunity to get off to a good start in Big Ten play with the teams that they drew in these December games, but got to make it up somewhere down the line.
Yep. You got to pull one
we
off
shall
when we're
see.
Supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. So
peace, everyone.
All right, Coach, behave yourself on Saturday. Well, don't.
No chance, baby.
I mean, don't.
There is no chance.
What's our deal with Saturday? You guys are all out?
I might be. Now we're supposed to play in a soccer tournament, which is always a great idea in December because we got like 3 inches of snow here yesterday. So
get the orange ball.
That is a little bit up in the air, but based on the game time, I think I will be back to watch the game. But I don't know if they're going to have to move stuff around because of the weather or back stuff up or whatever else. So that's my current situation with that. So I think Jared was going to reach out and see who else might be available. But like I said, I'm hoping it's better than 50-50 chance, but we'll see.
I'll be here. So if you want to join,
unless you want me to do it from the bar,
I mean,
there's actually nothing I want more than that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know that we need that.
What was I going to say?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll see you guys on Saturday. Hopefully for a better performance.
Let's hope so. If it's not a better performance, they're going to lose by 40. It's going to be a replay of the Louisville game last year. So, but I don't think that'll happen.
No.
So.
Yeah, and a shameless plug: if you need my Venmo for my beer money or anything, just get a hold of me. I'm not above taking freebies.
Nice. Well, oh dear God. Anyway,
Dale, send me some money. I see you in the chat.
Man, this has just turned into overt asking for money now. All right, we better wrap up.
Bye, guys.
For anything else. All right, we'll see you guys.